Thank you very much for joining me this morning. It's really lovely. I haven't done a live for a wee while, so it's good to be talking about this. And I'm very excited about this Yang Fire Horse. I don't know how much knowledge. I know some of you guys are probably familiar with Chinese medicine and some of the theories that we've talked about because I've worked with some of you. Some of you may be less familiar. So, um, just a tiny bit of background about me. I'm a 5-element acupuncturist. I've been practicing for about 15 years. And I also run practitioner training. I run the program on the Harmony Principle. I'm really into the idea of rooting ourselves seasonally. For me, it makes absolutely perfect sense for our health. And when I see people in clinic who are very disconnected from cycles and seasonal cycles and rhythms, it often is it's quite informing. So I'm really into that, if you like. And I'm also really excited and interested about how we can work with the kind of energetic themes of the year as a way of giving us uh, an idea of the energy that we're going to be living within. And I kind of always think about this as like a weather pattern that we sort of is useful to acknowledge. I think it can be really unhelpful when I see people sort of using it as a sort of prediction tool, because actually we are all completely individual and we have our own energetic we are bringing into the year. And so our interaction with that is also part of what happens. So the point of today is to give you an overview of the kind of things we can expect, what a Yang Fire Horse actually means, the what that means in terms of the sort of macrocosm and for ourselves, and the opportunities that it offers. Because there's a lot of really exciting things, which is really, really reassuring in the middle of the current climate, because I think we can all see with our own eyes that there is a crumbling of structure, there is a dissolving of things, and so if we understand the rules of Chinese medicine and the laws of nature and yin and yang, into that will come something new. So, uh, yeah, we're not here to predict the year; we're here to meet it well. So, hi, Julie. So, and the horse is the sixth in the so we have, the 12 years in the Chinese zodiac, and the horse is in the middle of that. So we are at the midpoint of something, right? So um we have we are coming to the very close. In fact, we've entered into the energy of the fire horse year that began on February the 4th, but it really arrives properly with the Chinese New Year, right? The 17th, I think it's the 17th of February. So that's when we really start to feel this energy properly shift. So the yin wood snake was this wonderful ending point of this sort of shedding. And what the yin wood snake asked us to do was to really, really get rid of anything that wasn't serving authentic self. Now, the word authentic gets bandied around a lot these days, but what we really mean is anything that wasn't truthful and true for you, right? So what we hope we've managed to do, or we've been almost forced to do in some ways over the last year, is we've really been asked what's important to us and who we are within that. And now we are being invited to move with some momentum. There is a Chinese, or there's this idea that that the horse is what the spirit rides on, right? So it's this kind of it gives it the momentum. Um, so we're going to ride the horse. So if we think about, I'm going to break it down a little bit because I think that's useful as well. Because of course, last year was yin and wood and snake, so there was a pattern to that. This is yang fire horse, so we're looking at fire, fire, fire. Yang, in its very expression, is a lively, light. Yang is action and movement and um, light and power and all of those things. And then fire is, well, fire in Chinese medicine is communication. It's intimacy. It's connection. It's heart. It is illumination. Um, it's lots of things. And then we have the horse, which is also fire, and specifically the horse represents heart. So in Chinese medicine, the heart is made up of the heart, the small intestine, the pericardium, and the triple heater. So you have inner fire and outer fire. And this is the heart, which is the sovereign. So the heart's only role is to spread love, to send love out, and to be perfectly loving and zen and calm whilst everything happens around it, because the love that it transmits and it sends out is the spark for everything else that happens. So that's the sort of overview of this lovely opportunity. Now that sounds amazing, right? It's like, yeah, it's going to be really fun. And there is certainly a lot of that. I think there's going to be a lightning that we hope that most of us will feel. But we also have the other side of fire, which is, fire will burn stuff down. And so I think we have these two things happening in the world right now. We have the burning down of something and the opportunity for the rising of something else. There's a particular type of conifer in California and in places where they are prone to wildfires, which actually seeds in fire. So when there is a fire, it's one of the first trees to populate the land once it's been sort of cleansed and cauterized. So we're kind of, I'm inviting you to be one of these seeds. So that's the overview. So yeah, that feels quite nice, right? I mean, how is everyone feeling about what we're going into? I mean, if you've got anything you'd like to share, then please do feel free to pop it in the chat. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the horse, and then we'll talk a little bit more about everything else. We'll sort of break it down, and then I'm going to give you some tools to work with, some ideas, as well as then we'll do the practice. So in Chinese medicine, the horse is linked with the fire and the heart, and it represents this animated life force. As I said, it's movement with direction. So the way the spirit becomes action in the world. The heart can be, but then we need it to become something, right? We want what's in the heart to become manifest in the world. And in Chinese medicine, the heart is the first in the meridian of the meridians. Because it is this I am in existence. The small intestine's job is then to say, is it safe to emerge, right? The small intestine is this sorting the pure from the impure. And then the water element comes next. The bladder and the kidneys represent the structure around which everything then forms. So this is the point at which we are manifesting our way of being next. And so this horse is not just about speed, it's about purposeful vitality. And that purposeful vitality is really important. So we have this opportunity for movement and momentum, for expressiveness and visibility, which can be challenging. Horses are very sensitive. We've all seen sort of skittish horses. They will be very easily spooked, but they're really attuned to their environment, that sort of relational awareness. They're a herd animal. And when we look into sort of herd wisdom, they respond to coherence and responsiveness rather than force, right? So this sort of idea of herd wisdom when it comes to horses This is the fact that they will act together for the benefit of the group, which is, thank God, right? We really need that. Um, so, the horse society is actually a matriarchal society. There is a sort of experienced older mare that will lead the group. The stallion's just muscle. He's there just to procreate and, see off see off the predators or the intruders. But it's a matriarchal society. This is an animal that lives in groups intelligently. And so the mare, the lead mare, will be the calmer, more experienced, um, this kind of crone energy, right? So I think one of the things we're asked to do this year, and one of the things that we will see happening this year, is that we will see more female leadership. And we will see, I mean, let's face it, they've made a right old mess, haven't they, these old men? Um, so praise be. Um, but we want these people who think for the herd, who don't think for themselves, right? There is this need for the sort of benefiting of others. Um, so this idea that leadership comes from trust and regulation, not domination. And this is going to be key, I think, in how in terms of how we consider how we might thrive over the next few years and over the next coming of whatever is coming. It's and we'll talk about this a bit more when we look at fire and everything, because that all comes together in a beautiful way. But this is about how we work together now. What's coming next, what will benefit the herd, is about how we relate to each other and what's good for everybody. And we are going to see, and what we're going to see working in really interesting, beautiful ways um, is things that happen at the grassroots. And we're beginning to see it actually in these uprisings and things. We're beginning to see how that's happening, how people are organizing for themselves. And that is really going to be boosted by this horse energy. So balanced horse energy looks like radiant presence and calm direction, that powerful authority that doesn't need to dominate. It's just there. We've all probably been around horses like that. Imbalanced horse energy looks like frenzy, reactivity, and scattered effort. This is, I've written a note to myself, it's like, and this probably relates back again to the sort of idea of fire and parties. You know, balanced fire is the person that you want to speak to at a party, and unbalanced fire is the absolute cracker in the middle of the dance floor doing tequila shots and being a little bit crazy, probably the last to leave. That's the way I always kind of think about it. Um, I mean, I've had those moments, I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, the horse is a really beautiful, interesting, fantastically inspirational herd animal to consider, because this is about intelligent, relational, attuned to the environment, energy. Quiet rebellion. Yeah, exactly. Exactly that, Jamie. We just organize for ourselves, right? It's that sort of doing what needs to be done for everyone. Now, when we then think about fire and what we know about the fire element, and really I'm thinking about the inner fire now. But fire really is about communication and relationship and recognition and emotional truth. And also heart is about sovereignty, right? So one of the things we don't talk about much with the fire element, or that I don't see talked about much with the fire element, but one of my favorite things about the fire element is that the fire elements, it's about maturity. This is how we mature. It's about recognizing the relationships that hold us and how we are connected, and how we can be in our own power in that without giving bits of ourselves away, right? So as we are growing, often our emotions are shaped by the environment and by the people that raise us to some extent, and the experiences we have, um, and then as we grow and get out into the world, we begin to do that for ourselves. The more we are and the longer we're out in the world by ourselves, or the more experiences we have that sort of force us to come back to this place, the more sovereignty we begin to have, and the more we are able to hold our heart clear for ourselves without it becoming compromised with all the things that all the things that we all the things that can affect us, guilt, shame, peer pressure, um the demands of other people, duty, uh, what's the thing that lots of us women do? It's a bit pleasing. We can get a bit pleasy, just want to please people at the expense of ourselves. And the heart is there to help us become our fullest expression of self, so that we can hold our boundaries. There's a lot of boundary holding with the heart. There's four aspects to it. When we have a couple of gates in there for a reason. This is about how we maintain that. And the heart itself governs awareness and spirit, whilst the small intestine, which is its young partner, is all about discernment. This idea of what's pure, what's impure. It sorts this stuff out. And so those powers are going to be really useful for us this year, where we are invited to, like the sort of sensitive little horses that we're all going to be, we will get to, we can really cultivate our ability to cut the bullshit and really only put our energy into the things that are going to serve, um, serve the heart. One of the things I've written down is that fire reveals truth through relationship, and that really feeds into that. We are going to, some of us might find that some of the relationships in our lives do come into question, because there's a place of not wanting to compromise, or really finding that we're able to hold our boundaries. That is interesting, Lindsay. Yeah, I think that's been the end of the yin-wood snake as well. If that's one of your things that you need to shed, then it will have really come at you, to help you this year. Now, if we think about fire itself, and we think of the amazing things, and we think of the challenges fire brings, fire was central to our evolution. Gave us cooking, which gave us, they say, one theory is that gave us bigger brains, protection from predators, but also fires became places to gather. And they talk about the fact that we developed, the smile, the human smile was, a sort of fear response, or was, something that we did when we discovered fire and began to gather. It became a way of communicating that you were a safe, happy person to be there, right? It was a way of connecting. The smile became something different. And, we gathered around these fires, and we created circles, and we told stories, and fire became the place where we communicated. And there's studies that show that looking at an actual fire for 15 minutes will lower your blood pressure and, raise all of the feel good feelings that we can have. This is just what it does for us, just as the sun does. And we talk about I've talked before in various things about the heavenly illuminations. The sun illuminates life on earth and makes things grow. The heart is our inner illumination. It illuminates what we have held within and allows that to grow. The fire is this transformative power. And but what else does fire do in nature? Well, of course, it burns shit down, and it cleanses in that burning down. And in some ecosystems, that is part of how it thrives. And I think that if we look at the sort of history of civilizations, that's the pattern that we see also. There is an arc. And I think what's um, so important for us all to consider, particularly if we find ourselves sucked into all of the all of the awful stuff that's happening and the fear that naturally creates, is that everything is cyclical, and every month as a woman is cyclical. Every year has a cycle. We're in a 12-year cycle. We're in a 60-year cycle. We're in a civilizational cycle. The astrologers are all telling us this is another huge cycle that is ending and beginning. So we're in the tail end. I'm rather comforted by the people who tell us that our souls chose this moment to be here, and it's what we agreed to do when we arrived. I don't know if that's true or not, but maybe it is. I certainly believe that the the rise in the interest of in more esoteric practices, in alternative medicines, in spirit practices, has offered us a tool set for this time. There's a lot of performative spiritual stuff, but actually, for many of us who've sort of been who are in this moment, we've been given a language to mature and develop. Our parents didn't have. We've been given many opportunities that people didn't have, and we're all here interested in this moment. So that's part of the gift of it all. And so if we can maintain balanced fire, which shows up as warmth and connection and joy and real clarity, we can hopefully tip the balance against imbalanced fire, which shows up as burnout and overexposure and emotional escalation. And we are certainly seeing both on the world stage. There is this idea of a conflagration of things happening. So I think that is one of the feeling. And so fire illuminates, but it also exposes. And I just want to touch on the relationship between the fire and water as well. So everything starts with water, right? Water is the element in which everything began and everything is held. On this planet, we came out of the primordial ooze, out of water. And fire is the illuminating spark that that transformed everything, that made life happen on Earth. But water controls fire. So if water gets out of control, it will put out the fire. And so what we have to try and do, or I'm going to use my favorite word of the moment, behoves us to do, is to cultivate our fire in order to keep water in check. Now, in the 5-element model also, and please do get me to explain this more clearly if this is new to you. But we have the 5 elements, and it's a creative cycle, right? So each element gives birth to the next. So we have water that gives birth to wood that gives birth to fire gives birth to earth gives birth to metal. We also have a control cycle, and that is the control cycle helps keep everything in check and in balance. So we have the fire element that gives rise to earth, and earth is, of course, it's life on earth. It's Mother Earth. It's everything that comes from the earth, but it's also community and gathering, right? If we think about the earth element as representing harvest time, and what that means, it means it's time when people gather together to do what they need to do so that everyone survives the winter. So this is what fire gives birth to. Love gives birth to community. So when we cultivate love and we cultivate community, we are And Earth controls water. We are controlling water. We are controlling the way that fear and all that comes from the panic that comes out of feeling like survival's not possible, that is tempered by everything we're putting in this area here. So for me, looking at the weather, wondering which hat I'm going to wear and what on earth it's going to do to my hair. When I'm looking at the weather for the year, I am really feeling that call to till my own garden and my own ground and my own community. How do we connect with people who resonate with us and with what we want to create? What can we contribute to those around us, not just our own families or our tiny ecosystems? This really is about tapping into that wider herd mentality, and whether we are the ones leading or we are looking for someone that we can join. I would certainly say choose your crones, right? This is the time for the crones, the crone power. These are the elders, and it's the elders with that matriarchal energy that will really help us feel safer and help pull it all together. So that was a real aside there. But when we have fire and horse combined with the yang, also we have got energy amplifying, right? Because it's yang, yang, yang. Oh. So there is an incredible explosion of that. And so with that, this is the idea of collective patterns because it's so prevalent. So we are probably going to see faster social change. Leadership tests, well, they're coming, aren't they? Exposure of weak structures. I mean, I'm not sure how much more exposure I can handle, but we need to see what's under the sheets. Oh, that's probably not the best turn of phrase. The rise of relational leadership models, which is kind of what I've touched upon. This is about how we, hopefully lead from a place that's not just benefiting the 2%. And a lower tolerance for false authority. And I think we're all feeling that, and we're probably all seeing that. And we might be seeing that on the we can all see it on the bigger scale, but we might also be seeing that in our own work systems or in our own environments, where that's just not going to fly anymore. And people are really kicking against it. And you're not going to harness a horse that doesn't want to be harnessed. So with regards to how this works on the personal level, this might really add some urgency to things. I think that sometimes we can be really good at procrastination, and sometimes we need to be forced into things. Decisions, we will probably feel some of that urgency and that drive and momentum in our own lives also this year. And some of that may be around relationships. But some of it's going to probably be around relationships and what we will tolerate and what nourishes us and what doesn't. But I think we're all going to feel some real clarity. And it's the kind of clarity that comes from knowing what's in there that needs to be expressed and what's right for that. And that, my friends, is glorious. It's really, really glorious if we can stay with it. And I'll talk about how we can do that, because, fire can really take you away if it wants to. So, we're doing quite well for time. Yeah, I've talked about that. So this idea of herd intelligence and heart intelligence, so combine that, we're going to see this sort of hierarchical control. I hope it collapses. Let's just see. But again, this sort of matriarchal energy that's coming, that's shifting in with this. It's not about anti-masculinity, of course, or gender dominance. It's just really about the type power that's going to work for us now and that's going to take us forward, and that we can harness for ourselves if we are looking at how we can make changes within our lives or within other people's lives. Now, in terms of anchoring into this year, I mean, one of the things I'd really like you to think about is, thank you, Jamie. Um, what I'd really like you to think about is how you are in the summer. The fire yang horse, the yang horse fire, yang fire horse, its month is June. So June is the midpoint of the year also, and the solstice. The solstice. So it's really the zenith of the sun being in the sky if you're in, in this hemisphere. And I just want to if you just take a moment to consider and reflect how you find that time of year. Because for some of us, summer is the time when we check in with all of our friends and we have this really fantastic sort of sense of it. Some of us struggle with the season, partly because of its social demands and partly because of the weather, because we're not naturally, we don't naturally find that weather suits us. And so with all of this happening, one of the ways I really want you to consider is what works for you at that time of year. If you are someone that can only do, short bursts of people, because actually it can be quite challenging, it can be quite a lot, then you're going to really need to consider how you can create that space for yourself in this coming year to keep you grounded. One of the things about fire yang horse is it's up here. And the challenge for us all actually is going to be staying grounded within that so that we can walk it well. And if you are a person who naturally is, yay, party, then the challenge for you is also going to be, how do you ground that without hitting burnout? Because there's going to be so much opportunity for momentum and movement and action this year that it can be tempting to really just go for it. And what we want to see is grounded, balanced energy, as opposed to that sort of frantic, frenzied potential for burnout energy. And if we think about how our friends in the Mediterranean and the warmer climates do it, they have a lie down in the afternoon, often after lunch, which is when the small intestines time is, which is all about sorting things out. Bring back naps. But all joking apart, one of the things we don't do when it's really hot is spend all day toiling. There is an imperative to take time out, lie down on the ground, think about sunbathing and just sort of being still like some one of those cold-blooded lizards, just warming yourself on a hot stone. Build in the moments for stopping and for being, to ground fire and to regulate. That's one of my key sort of takeouts, I think, for this year. Because actually what we really need to be mindful of is that we are regulating before we react, because there's going to be buttons being pressed and there's going to be things feeling like they're moving really quickly. And often, if we fall into that, we can become quite knee-jerk in our responses. And, it brings us further up. And then we're not necessarily acting from a place that's best. We're just acting. So we need to consider that we're sort of regulating quite regularly so that our clarity is also available. And then the other thing is really our sort of relationships and our relational circles. Those are going to be one of our anchor points for this year. And I think, spend some time in the next few days before we really hit that energy. before the fire horse really arrives, thinking about who those are or what those are, and where you might want to cultivate more. For some people, they might have been thinking, "Oh, I've been thinking about getting an allotment." Well, do it this year, because that will be a different. Oh gosh, that would be such a nice thing to do this year. I'm all about the polytunnel this year, I think. But things that are really going to help you feel like you're part of a community and part of the herd that's acting for the good. Um, you know, whether that means, running for office, becoming an MP. I mean, God knows, we could do some decent ones. Or, it's about, joining, a local group that volunteers to clean the park. It doesn't really matter how big or small it is. It's really about cultivating that connection, that plugs us in to that. And this is really about trusted networks. And this comes back to, I think, one of the things that you were possibly talking about, Lindsay. Really get clear on your values. This idea of discernment that comes, or sorting the pure from the impure that comes from the small intestine to keep the heart clear. If something doesn't feel aligned, we have this intuition for ourselves. And if we get really caught up in the yang excitement energy and forget to come back to that, sometimes we might find ourselves further down paths than we thought that we didn't necessarily want to go down. And I think that it's that classic thing, I think, sometimes with this sort of energy where you feel so enlivened and excited, and after the sort of perhaps some of the sort of constrained feelings of last year, of that sort of slightly waiting, like really ready to go for it. But we all have our own energetic reserves and our own settings, right? So what someone else might be doing with their day or achieving in their day has no relationship to what's right for you. And I talk about this in one of the other programs that I run. Our life season will also sort of dictate some of what we can and can't be doing. If you are in the stage of, you've got young kids, or, elderly parents, or whatever it is, other constraints, then naturally what's going to be happening is what you can do is going to be restricted. One of my favorite rants at the moment, there are so many wonderful things about social media, but there's so many really weird, toxic things. And, I can't bear these people that tell you, like, you need to do these 26 things by the first of whatever in order to what. I'm like, who has got the time? I would love to sort of wake up in the morning and meditate for an hour and do my journaling and drink, chrysanthemum tea, and then drift into it. But I haven't got time. I don't know about you, but I have, many demands on my time. So this is about finding the space that you need to come back to regulate, that's realistic, and that you guard, so that the heart can be free. Okay. So yes, exactly that. I did see there was one the other day, and she was saying you need to do these 26 things before the horse arrives, and it was like, sort out your drawers and throw all this stuff out. I was like, if I had time to do that, I'd have done it already. I'd have done it in the autumn when I was clearing stuff out. I'm just hanging on here, guys. So really, the takeout is to protect your heart energy, practice discernment, and build rest into the rhythm, and choose depth over drama. The There will be plenty of drama unfolding over the next years. There is no doubt about that. So if we can anchor into something else, I like it, Lindsay. I encourage that truly. If we can anchor that, then that's going to serve us well. Would anyone like to ask any questions before we move into our little practice? And I think from today, I haven't built in, journaling prompts or da 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 da. I just wanted to give you the weather report. Maybe I should have worn something more glamorous, but I would urge you to perhaps do a little bit of journaling over the next few days, just to really consolidate what you want to set into practice. Now we're going to do a little guided meditation or practice that you can use throughout the year, which is really about cultivating heart fire and kidney wisdom. You can use a rose quartz. I've got this lovely bad boy. It doesn't matter what size it is, but you can use a rose quartz. Some people like to keep rose quartz in their bras. I've had more than one client sort of tip things out of their bras before. So if you want to work with rose quartz is a powerful, powerful stone for the heart chakra, of course. And it's a really lovely stone to work with. I mean, it's a pretty universally loved one. Rose essential oil is also probably the heart chakra oil. And also it really, really, truly resonates with the heart as an official in Chinese medicine. Rose is a really expensive essential oil, I'm not going to lie. So you can also use Rose Absolute, which is often more affordable, and it's already diluted because you're not working with a pure oil anyway. If you're interested in working with oils, but you want an alternative to Rose, geranium, Palmarosa is a really good oil to work with this year, particularly if you are someone for whom perhaps that discernment question can be tricky. If you are someone that can find yourself a bit in the weeds, then Palmarosa is going to be a gorgeous oil to work with because it really, really, really works with the small intestine in a powerful way and the heart. And it smells like sweets. Neroli is also gorgeous. And jasmine's a really fantastic oil, particularly to work with the heart. If one of your perhaps, I'm loath to use the word issues, one of your protection mechanisms is trust. This is a heart year, but many of us have learned that it's not safe to be vulnerable with our heart. And so that can be a challenge. And in a time that's asking a lot from us, and it's asking us to lead with the heart, then if perhaps some of that vulnerability comes from not trusting the world with it, then jasmine will be a very, very beautiful oil to work with also. Yeah, that was jasmine, Jamie. Now, if you're new to aroma point therapy is using essential oils at a higher dilution than is probably usually used in aromatherapy to activate an acupuncture point. So what you have when you work with an essential oil on an acupuncture point is you have the energetic of the oil and the plant, and then you have the potential and power of the acupuncture point, the spirit of the acupuncture point. And in 5-element acupuncture, the spirit of the point is really what informs our practice. This is spirit medicine before anything else. And we are going to meditate today with activating Reins 17 or conception vessel 17, which is right in the middle of the chest. Now, if you want to locate this for yourself, you're coming down 4 rib spaces and it's right in the middle. So it's right in the middle of the chest there on the sternum. And the rib spaces are quite easy to feel because you just drop down. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, it's actually 5. Sorry. You're right in the middle of the breasts. Yeah. Now this point it's actually where the heart and the lungs meet. And the lung is there to bring in inspiration, divine, with the breath. Every breath in is an inspiration. And it's this idea that we get this sort of heavenly chi that comes in. And what that does is illuminate and inspire the heart to its potential. Isn't that gorgeous? It's such a glorious point. So if you're working with the oil, then I would invite you to just place a drop on your finger and then locate CV17 and just hold it very lightly on there. And you're going to hold it lightly on there for 2 or 3 minutes. You'll feel a point at which it feels natural to perhaps let it go. It is the lightest touch that you need. It's not acupressure. If you aren't working with an oil, then just hold your hands over that area. If you're working with an oil, you hold it there until you feel ready to release it, and then simply place your hands over the heart space. I'm aware that you can't see me very well there. If you're working with a quartz, then all you do is just hold it in that place. So I'm going to invite you to, I'm going to use the shelf of my bra to hold it in place there. It's very handy. So whichever you're using, just make sure you're sat comfortably, and I'm going to guide you through a really useful short practice. So you can place your hands over the quartz or over the heart, or you can place one hand over the heart and one on the abdomen. And just start to slow the breath down. And if you close your eyes and just really as you gently breathe, just do a short body scan. Really feel into anywhere you're holding tension. You're not trying to change it, just notice it. Shoulders, throat, hips, jaw. I'm just curious. And now we're just going to slow our breath right down. And we're going to inhale for 5 and exhale for 5 on your own count. So take a breath in. For 5 rounds. Just want you to bring some awareness now to the center of your chest. You can imagine a small, steady half fire glowing there. nice and contained, and warm. Now I want you to connect to the top of your head and imagine you're bringing light down through the crown, bringing light and air into that fire, feeding it, keeping it alive, feeling that warmth spread. Now I want you to imagine this warmth is just gently descending through the body, down into the kidney space in the lower back. No forcing, just allow it down there. The heart fire is descending now to warm the kidney water. Fire steams these waters of wisdom. So imagine now those reserves of wisdom that you're holding in your lower back are gently steaming into awareness. The virtue of fear is wisdom. And as you're resting here with your heart kidney access working in its beautiful way, just ask yourself, what is the right direction for your attention this year? Just allow whatever comes to come. No need to reach for anything. Everything you need to know for yourself is held in the kidneys and the heart. How to stay safe and how to be in the world. So if you're safe to be yourself fully, what do you do with that power? And then when you're ready, just allow the breath to deepen as you come back into your body. My dog's decided we've had enough. And as you come back, just know that this is available to you at any time, and that the invitation is to come back to the heart and to transform any fear into wisdom for yourself and your life. Being open hearted really takes courage in this world. Uh, so, yeah, thank you very much for joining me. Um, if you want any other sort of prompts to think about ahead of the horse opening, sorry, I'm just getting my crystal out of my bra. Um, I called this holding the reins. Just consider might need what might need its reins held this year, and what should be given its head. Um, yeah, we've got some lights to shine, people. That's the truth. So, yeah, come back to your heart space as much as you can, and yeah, thank you ever so much. Would anyone like to ask any questions? Thank you for your lovely comments. Um, would anyone like to ask any questions or share anything before we close for today and head back into the the world? Well, thank you all for joining me, and come back to these tools that we have. I look forward to what we bring into this coming year, and yeah, hold on to those reins, people. It's gonna be fun. I've got this image of me like doing dressage, very neatly. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and thank you for sharing. I know some of you have been sort of sharing my work with other people. Um, if you would like to work any more deeply with me, or someone that might, then I have my spring retreat for practitioners coming up at the March equinox on Arran. If you've never been to Arran, it's really a wild place still, and it's a really pretty amazing place to connect with nature and to really connect with that dynamic wood energy, which of course we'll be working with in the spring. And my Immerse program is opening again in at the end of March, which is the sort of year-long walk through the seasons, which is sort of guided. So both of those things are going to be available. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your Saturday, and thank you again. Don't know how to turn this off now, but there it is. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you.